Okay, so you want to buy a movie theater. You picture yourself standing at the back of a grand auditorium, smelling the warm butter of fresh popcorn while hundreds of captivated patrons stare at a screen you own, hanging on every frame of the latest summer blockbuster. You collect the cash, sweep a few stray cups, and watch the profits roll in. Sounds simple. It is not simple. In fact, the local cinema is one of the most misunderstood, economically hostile traps in modern business. Because here's the reality. You are not actually in the movie business. You are a real estate landlord operating a highly specialized indoor concession stand that uses Hollywood intellectual property as high-priced bait. The screen, the seats, the multi-million-dollar laser projectors, they're just a lost leader to get a human being to walk past a glass counter, look at a 30-cent bag of popped corn kernels, and agree to pay $8 for it. To survive in this industry, you have to stop thinking like an art curator and start thinking like a highly leveraged logistics manager trying to squeeze pennies out of foot traffic. So how much does it actually cost to open the doors? Here's the part nobody tells you. Building a theater from scratch is a massive endeavor that makes standard commercial real estate look like child's play. If you want to build a brand new mid-sized suburban multiplex with 8 to 10 screens, you can expect construction costs to land anywhere between $10 million and $15 million. To put that into perspective, back in 2003, an independent owner in Ohio spent almost $1 million just to build a simple 2-screen drive-in theater, leveraging their house, cars, and retirement accounts as collateral. If you scale up to a modern indoor multiplex, the costs explode. You cannot simply buy a commercial projector from an electronics store. You need specialized digital cinema projectors certified to prevent piracy and decrypt studio hard drives. A single professional RGB pure laser projector will run you exactly $126,000 per screen before you spend a single dime on servers, screens, or sound processors. Then comes the real shocker: acoustic isolation and seating. To compete with streaming, you need plush, power-reclining lounge chairs. While these recliners drastically reduce your room capacity by up to 50%, they require custom-built stepped risers and heavy electrical rough-ins. Additionally, soundproofing auditoriums so that explosions in an action film don't ruin the quiet romantic drama next door requires specialized double-stud drywall configurations in acoustic fiberglass, adding up to $30,000 per auditorium. Even if you choose to bypass the construction nightmare and buy into a franchise like Alamo Drafthouse, you must prove a minimum net worth of $10 million with $3 million in liquid assets. You haven't even popped your first kernel of corn, and you are already buried under an avalanche of 8-figure debt. Once you have the building, how do you get permission to actually show the movies? The regulatory gauntlet is a silent killer designed to bleed your capital before your first ticket is even printed. First, you have to navigate the local zoning board and strict disability access requirements, which mandate precise sight lines, ramp slopes, and wheelchair seating ratios that can strip away valuable revenue-generating space. Then, you meet the music licensing agencies. You might think buying the rights to show a movie covers the sound, but any background music played in your lobby, restrooms, or bar requires a separate public performance license, costing roughly $600 per physical location annually, with copyright infringement penalties reaching up to $30,000 per song if you get caught playing unlicensed tunes. But the ultimate project killer is the clearance system operated by major film distributors. To show a blockbuster from Disney or Universal, you must be approved as an official exhibitor. If a major national theater chain is operating within your local zone, they can invoke geographic exclusivity clauses that block the studios from selling you the prints. If your competitor has a 5-mile exclusivity zone, your multi-million-dollar theater will be legally banned from showing the weekend's biggest blockbuster. In the theatrical world, the law doesn't just dictate how you build your business, it decides if you are allowed to have customers at all. So how does the financial engine actually generate profit? To understand the math of the theater, you have to peel back the revenue layer by layer. The first layer is the box office, which is the ticket sales themselves. Here's the catch. You do not keep most of this money. For a massive blockbuster like a Marvel film, the distributor demands a film rental fee that starts as high as 60 to 65% of ticket sales during the opening weekend. If you sell a ticket for $15, then nearly $10 goes straight back to the studio in Burbank, leaving you with a measly $5. The second, and far more lucrative layer, is concessions. This is where your business actually lives. A tub of popcorn costs you approximately 30 cents in raw kernels, coconut oil, and a paper bucket, but you sell it to the customer for $9, securing a massive 96% gross profit margin. That is a markup higher than luxury fashion houses or premium software. A cup of fountain soda carries a similar margin. If you can convince just half of your patrons to buy a popcorn and soda combo, the high-margin food sales will completely eclipse the profit made from the actual movie tickets. The third layer is on-screen advertising. Before the lights dim, those static slides and local commercial loops generate a reliable payout of about $1 per patron. Finally, there is the hidden layer of private theater rentals. Renting out an auditorium on a dead Tuesday morning to a local corporation can bring in a flat fee of $1,500 for 3 hours. And unlike ticket sales, you keep 100% of that revenue. You aren't selling cinema. You're selling hot air, melted butter, and sugar water wrapped in the illusion of art. So what happens when the theater is empty, but the bills keep piling up? The daily operating bleed of a theater is relentless, and it does not shrink just because a movie bombs. First, consider the utilities. Heating and cooling a massive, high-ceilinged building with multiple insulated auditoriums is a mechanical nightmare. A typical 10-screen multiplex consumes over 100,000 kilowatt-hours of electricity per month, translating to a monthly utility bill of $15,000 to $20,000 because your HVAC units must run constantly to prevent moisture from destroying your expensive silver screens. Then comes equipment maintenance. Digital projectors are highly sensitive computers. If you use standard lamp-based systems, the bulbs degrade rapidly, costing over $1,000 to replace every 1,000 hours. Even with modern laser systems, you're locked into mandatory manufacturer service contracts, costing $2,000 per screen monthly to ensure your server doesn't reject its encrypted security keys. Then comes labor. You need a small army of part-time minimum-wage staff to sweep floors, scrub sticky soda dispensers, and handle the concessions rush, dragging your annual payroll past $250,000. Finally, you face liability insurance. Slip and fall incidents in dark auditoriums combined with the risk of popcorn popper grease fires will push your insurance premiums to $40,000 a year. During the global lockdowns of 2020, empty megachains like AMC were burning through over $100 million in cash per month just to keep their dark leases alive. Your theater doesn't care if the movie on screen is a commercial disaster. It demands to be heated, cooled, and swept anyway. But what is the silent trap that quietly suffocates owners who think they have the math figured out? It is the brutal structural dependency on an external, unpredictable content schedule. Unlike a restaurant or a retail boutique, you have zero control over the design or quality of the product you sell. If Hollywood suffers a writer's strike, or if major studios collectively decide to delay their tentpole releases to the following year, your screens sit dark. You cannot manufacture your own Blockbuster. When Disney decided to bypass theaters entirely and release major films directly to Disney Plus Premier Access, theater owners watched their revenue evaporate overnight, while their massive triple-net commercial leases remained completely unchanged. Your rent and utilities are completely fixed, while your foot traffic is entirely dependent on the creative output of directors thousands of miles away. You have built a multi-million-dollar stage, but you are entirely at the mercy of actors who don't even know your name. So who managed to defy these brutal economic odds, and how did they do it? The answer lies in Austin, Texas, with Tim and Carrie League. In 1997, they founded the very first Alamo Drafthouse out of an old warehouse. Tim, a passionate cinephile who despised stale popcorn and noisy patrons, engineered a brilliant business model. He turned the theater into a full-service restaurant. Instead of warm soda, stealthy servers delivered craft beers and hot pizzas directly to seats. To protect the magic, Tim famously instituted a strict zero-tolerance policy for talking or texting, even turning one irate customer's voicemail complaint into a viral PSA shown before films. By shifting the focus from tickets to a premium dine-in experience, Alamo grew to over 40 locations, proving that if you treat cinema with respect and pair it with high-margin food, audiences will happily pay a premium. But what happens when a drive for endless scale meets a sudden, unforeseen catastrophe? Look no further than the dramatic rise and fall of Mookie Greidinger, the charismatic CEO of Cineworld. Having worked his way up from ticket counters, Mookie was obsessed with a singular ambition: transforming his family company into the absolute #1 theater chain on Earth. In 2017, he orchestrated a massive debt-fueled $3.6 billion acquisition of Regal in the United States, instantly capturing over 7,300 screens. But he didn't stop there, aggressively pushing for an additional $2.1 billion takeover of Canada's Cineplex. Then, in March of 2020, the pandemic hit. Every single screen went dark, and Cineworld's revenue plunged to absolute zero while the company sat on a terrifying $9 billion mountain of lease liabilities. When Mookie tried to pull out of the Cineplex deal, a Canadian court slapped the company with a staggering $965 million breach of contract penalty. By September 2022, Cineworld was forced to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and Mookie and his brother Israel were stripped of their control by frustrated lenders. Mookie wanted to build an empire of screens, but in the end, he was crushed by the weight of his own stage. To see how quickly a theater can swing from a gold mine to a financial graveyard, let's look at the actual math. Imagine you own a modest, independent 8-screen theater with a total capacity of 1,200 seats. Let's walk through the optimistic year. Hollywood releases an incredible slate of hits, and you average a 25% capacity fill rate across the year. At an average ticket price of $12, your total box office revenue is over $5.2 million. The film distributor takes its cut, leaving you with about $2.3 million. However, because the movies are highly popular, 65% of those patrons buy concessions, generating over $2.8 million in food sales. With an 85% profit margin, you keep 2.4 of that. Add pre-show advertising, and your total net revenue is nearly $5 million. After deducting your fixed operating costs, including a $1.2 million lease, utilities, payroll, and maintenance, your theater walks away with a stellar pre-tax profit of over $2.8 million. Now, let's walk through the realistic bad year. A writer's strike occurs, several blockbuster films bomb, and audiences stay home. Your average capacity drops to just 12%. Your box office revenue collapses, and after the studio takes its share, you're left with just over $1.1 million. Furthermore, only half of your lighter crowds buy concessions, yielding $840,000 in food sales. After your food costs, you keep roughly $714,000. Your total net revenue has collapsed to $1.9 million. But remember, your rent, utilities, insurance, and equipment maintenance are completely fixed. Even if you trim payroll, your total operating costs remain pinned at nearly $1.95 million. Instead of a multi-million-dollar payday, your business has just suffered a net loss. The difference between these 2 years is a staggering $2.9 million. In the cinema business, you're always just one bad summer blockbuster season away from writing a personal check to keep your own lights open. So what is the final verdict for the aspiring theater mogul? If you still dream of owning a movie theater, understand what you're actually signing up for. You are not buying a ticket to Hollywood glamour. You're buying a highly complex, heavily leveraged retail space that relies on sugar, syrup, and salt to pay down millions of dollars in fixed commercial debt. You're an usher holding a broom, hoping that a boardroom executive's 3,000 miles away makes something good enough to convince a family to leave their couch. It's a beautiful, romantic dream. Every single night, the house lights go down. Every single night, Families laugh together, couples hold hands, and children make memories they will carry for the rest of their lives. The screen glows, casting its warm, flickering light across hundreds of smiling faces. But behind the back wall of that auditorium, standing in the shadows of the projection booth, someone is staring at the box office reports and praying to God they sold enough popcorn to keep the doors open tomorrow. Just make sure you can afford the price of admission.